We have our first speaker to kick us off today, who I am super excited that she is here. We have worked together in previous companies. We have stayed in contact. She's awesome. She knows so much about cloud native. She knows so much about Kubernetes, community, all of that. And we are going to bring in Cheryl Hung.
We are so excited that Cheryl is here. We are very excited. Hi, Cheryl.
Hey. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to see both of you. Danielle, Lisa, you're just two of my favorite people ever. So I'm
Same goes always. Awesome. Well, I'll kick over to you to introduce yourself to everyone. We will be in the background. We'll jump in with any questions, and off you go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So yeah, welcome to Cube Crash. It is great to be here. I'm going to chat to you a little bit about why infrastructure matters. So let's go ahead and share my screen. All right. Hopefully you can see my slides. Please yell if not.
We can't see them yet.
Okay. Give me a moment. There's always something.
It's, this is the good side of doing virtual meetings, figuring out which tab works and what to press.
Don't worry, we'll get there. We will get there.
It'll totally happen. I'm like leaning in, like suspense. Like, I know. Like edge of my seat. Like,
anticipation. And Cheryl had, okay. We'll get Cheryl back. It's funny, probably one of the most accomplished technical people here is having the most technical difficulty. And this happened yesterday too. And I think we decided that maybe Hop-in platform was part of the problem, but
we're back. Yes. Let's do this again.
Oh,
all right.
There it is.
Better.
Yay. Yes, there we go. All right.
Perfect. Okay. So I wanted to say a little bit about why infrastructure matters. So a little bit about me. My name is Cheryl. You can find me on Twitter at @OyCheryl. I am primarily interested in large-scale distributed systems, which is what I do at Apple. I'm an engineering manager on Apple's cloud services, which is our internal cloud platform. So my customers are things like iTunes, Siri, Apple Maps. I also used to work at Google, where I was an application developer working on Google Maps. I also love startups. So I advise for a handful of startups, Helio, Permit, and Ondat, which are all around making developers' lives easier. And then lastly, I love all things open source. I love all things community, ecosystems. I used to work for Cncf, which is the home of Kubernetes, Prometheus, and I don't know, maybe 1,000 different projects at this point. I'm also the founder of Cloud Native London, which is a meetup in London around the cloud native technologies. We are back in person and running on the first Wednesday of every month. So if you happen to be in London at some point in the future, please do come and say hello. I would love to see you there. So, infrastructure by the numbers. We're going to do this. We're going to just start out in the form of a little quiz. So I'm going to give you 3 questions with 4 answers each, and I'm going to give you 15 seconds to take a guess. Just take a stab at which one you think is correct. Okay? So first question is, how much of the world's electricity do data centers use? And your options are 0.5%, 1%, 2%, or 4%. How much of the world's electricity do data centers use? And your answer is 2%, just over 2% actually, just over 2%. Okay, next question. Data centers produce as much CO2 as which industry? Okay, options: aviation, agriculture, manufacturing, or shipping. Okay, data centers produce as much CO2 as aviation. And the last question, data centers produce as much greenhouse gases as which country? Okay, country. Canada, Germany, India, or Mexico? Data centers produce as much greenhouse gases as which country? Okay, the answer here is Germany. I suddenly feel like I should have been playing like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I should have given people like phone a friend options or whatever it is, 50-50. Anyway, the whole point of that was just to say data centers and infrastructure are actually a significant part of today's world, producing as much greenhouse gases as Germany, using 2% of the world's electricity, and emitting as much CO2 as the aviation industry. And the demand for compute is still going up and up and up and up. So this graph shows you the last 10 years plus a little projection forwards for the next couple of years. And what we're seeing is the new kinds of technologies that are coming up, things like machine learning, streaming, video conferencing, IoT, they're all very, very compute heavy and resource intensive. But of course, this graph cannot go up and to the right forever and ever. So we have to be more efficient with how we're using those resources. At the same time, particularly where I am in Europe, we have this energy crisis going on. So due to lots and lots of different factors, COVID, Brexit, the Ukraine war, lots and lots of different things, we currently have an energy crisis happening, and natural gas prices have spiked up over the last couple of years. And the upshot of all of that is that companies are starting to prioritize cost reductions in 2023. This quote comes from a director of engineering at a SaaS startup, but I've heard this from many, many other organizations as well. They run Kubernetes, they support 600 engineers on it, and they need to find how to use their Kubernetes platform as efficiently as possible. So one of the things that I've seen this year is what I'm calling sustainability meets open source, because open source is really at the heart of all enterprise infrastructure now. We've seen stats saying that 98% of code that's running is actually open source. So by coming together as a community, we can actually have a massive impact on how infrastructure is going to look, not just for today or for tomorrow, but in the years and decades ahead. So I wanted to particularly tell you about the Cncf Technical Advisory Group for Environmental Sustainability. This is pretty new. It only launched in May 2022. It has a GitHub page, it has a mailing list, and they meet on Zoom twice a month, and all the meetings are recorded and public as well. And the focus for this group is to support the ecosystem around environmental sustainability. So both in the projects around cloud native and for organizations, the best practices, guidance, education, how to measure environmental sustainability, and also because these are businesses at the end of the day, show that you can correlate being sustainable with saving money as well. And I wanted to highlight a couple of different tools and trends that I've seen this year around sustainability. And I've grouped them into three kind of categories. So the first one is measurement. I think this is self-explanatory. If you don't measure it, you don't know if you're improving. The second one is called sustainability on the infrastructure. So this is how you think about data, your application design, deployment when you're scaling up and down. For instance, I'll give you an example. When cloud native was in its infancy, one of the patterns that we used to see at companies was they would run one app per cluster. And this is an extremely inefficient way to use a cluster because your utilization is so low if you're only running a single application on it. But companies that were used to running a single app in the before days hadn't translated that to the cloud native thinking where you wrap things in containers and pack them closely together. So even just by using containers and something like Kubernetes, you can really increase the utilization of your infrastructure, which means it's more sustainable because you're using the resources more efficiently. The third part is called sustainability of the infrastructure. So this is the physical buildings themselves, things like heating, cooling, waste, building, the actual physical building and the operations of the building. I just want to give you a couple of hints to things that you might want to look at if you are looking at this area. Okay, so measurement. The first one is called Cloud Carbon Footprint, and this comes from ThoughtWorks. It's a tool that lets you estimate energy usage and carbon emissions from public cloud usage. Excuse me. Excuse me. The second one is a tool called Kepler, which is Kubernetes Efficient Power Level Exporter. And this uses eBPF and it probes the energy-related system stats and exports them as Prometheus metrics, which is really nice because then you can have your metrics about how much energy you're using right next to all of the other metrics around that you would expect from your workloads. And you can really use that to target which workloads are the hotspots, and those are the ones that you should optimize first. The second pillar was called sustainability on the infrastructure. So there's two here that I want to point out. One is called Cube Green, and it helps you shut down some of the resources that are not being used. And the second one is called Cube Downscaler. These are all open source projects, by the way. And Cube Downscaler allows you to scale down the workloads during non-work hours, but also on any kind of schedule that you might want. So for instance, let's say you're running an e-commerce site and you have regular flash sales that happen once every couple of weeks, then you know that your demand is going to go up during those times. And then after those hours, you can start to scale down again. So Cube Downscaler is a tool that lets you really match your infrastructure to your demand on regular periodic times. And then the third pillar was sustainability of the infrastructure. So here I would note you should try some of the newer, more efficient instance types. So a few years ago, AWS launched Graviton, which is an ARM-based processor, and they found that you could reduce your energy and therefore cost by between 20 and 40%. GCP and Azure have also launched ARM-based processors this year. So that's something that's worth investigating. And then probably the single largest change that you could make actually is to use the hyperscalers instead of using private cloud. And this is just because hyperscalers can and have managed a lot of the physical infrastructure, the things like heating and cooling, far more efficiently than any individual organization could do. And they also have things like spot instances and burstable instances. That means that you can take advantage of any spare capacity. So using hyperscalers over private cloud and using the more efficient instance types can be a way that you can influence the sustainability of the infrastructure. So very quick summary over what I've just talked about. I think really 2023 is when sustainability meets open source, and where it also meets all the cost pressures that organizations are under. And therefore, by doing a good thing for business, we can also do a good thing for the planet. The second one is you should measure what your system is doing and consider sustainability within your architecture design. If you don't measure it, you don't know if you're improving. And then thirdly, that technical advisory group that I mentioned, go and join that if you're interested in it. And they're currently working on an environmental sustainability survey. This is going to be out in a few weeks' time around KubeCon. So I want you to keep an eye out on it. And they're going to ask you a few questions around, do you measure the sustainability, the energy usage? What are your future plans for this? And I would really highly encourage you to go and take this survey when it comes out. That is all from me. These slides are going to be on my blog at ocheryl.com. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm not sure if we've got time for questions or otherwise enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.
Your slides were amazing, by the way. I haven't talked to you in a few months, and so I wasn't sure all the cool projects you're working on. And this just reminded me to check in with you often because you're always working on really cool projects. But yeah, that was, I didn't know what you were going to talk about today. That was amazing. I hope that ends up being a main stage keynote at KubeCon.
Oh, that's so kind of you, Lisa. I mean, I think there's always interesting things going on. I love spotlighting all the stuff that's happening around this area because it's so vibrant. There's so many good people in the community. They're always working on new things. So it's really exciting and it's really fun for me as well.
Well, and it's definitely something that I know, like in conversations I've had with different organizations, like sustainability comes up, but it's not always like, well, what do I do? How do I do it? How do I implement it? So like bringing it to the forefront, all the work you're doing, I think is so important for everybody. And as you know, everybody who's on this call, as you're thinking about your infrastructure and thinking about how you can do more to give back to the world, the planet, like I think this is a great start.
This is why I really wanted to be concrete about things that you could look at and use today and things that you could actually do. Because I think part of the problem is it seems so far away, it seems so distant, right? It's like, oh, what power do we have as individuals to do anything about all of this? And I really want to point out that, yeah, you do have the power to do small things, and those are going to really reverberate and resonate across the rest of the industry. You can help loads of other organizations at the same time. There's just so much that's out there. And as you say, like a lot of organizations are thinking about it and just need that little bit of a nudge to start out. Mm-hmm. So I really do encourage you, if you're interested in this, do check out that environmental sustainability group. I know that they would love to have more people join as well and hear from all of you.
Awesome.
We do have a couple questions for you. So Sonali is saying what is the site? We can post it in the chat, or Cheryl can post it in the chat right after she's finished presenting. And also Sonali had asked, is it possible to change the infra entirely when it's already in use?
I guess that's like asking, like, is it ever possible to migrate, to do a big migration? There are always ways that you can find small bits of the infrastructure that are self-contained and migrate those things over slowly. This is not the first time, of course, that infrastructure has changed. For example, going from VMs to containers was a big change. So yeah, I would say it is possible. You just have to be sort of take it slowly and think through how you want your architecture to look in a few years' time, and then what small bits you can change, rather than trying to do a big bang migration, which often is too scary and doesn't work well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And then what was the site exactly that you were telling folks to check out?
This is the site for the working group or for my blog with the slide.
Let's start with your blog.
Okay, my blog is ocheryl.com. That's OI and then my name, CHERYL.com. These slides are going to go up onto the blog pretty soon.
And then if anybody's interested in the links, they'll be able to get them from your slides.
Yes, exactly. So I know that I went pretty quickly over all those GitHub links and mailing lists. So I will definitely post the slides and then you can grab it from there.
Okay, awesome. And yes, you're welcome, Sonali. And then
I don't know if it's a question or more of a statement. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Cheryl, so much for being here this morning, this afternoon, where you are. And we'll see you later.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Cheryl.
for having me.